Hi and Assalamualaikum to SirPoji. My name is Dayang Nurizziati binti Abang Rahim and I'm from BA242-5A3. The topic for my presentation is Financial System Development and Economic Performance in Malaysia, whereas the relationship between financial liberalization and economic development in Malaysia is discussed in this report. For the introduction, in this modernized world, Malaysia is well known as a story of great and prosperous progress. Malaysia's economic performance improved when GDP growth rate were higher in the late of 1980s prior to the 1997 until the 1998 financial crisis. In the real economy, the effect of the financial crisis have been seen as supporting signs of business closures, reducing the level of high unemployment and increasing the level of inflation. The financial crisis is impacting the decline in economic development, which has had an inevitable social effect on Malaysia. For the problem statement, recently, tremendous attention from all over the world has been paid to the financial or economic success in developed countries. Many researchers have carried out research to investigate whether the effect of financial liberalization on economic growth is positive or negative. Can be economic development in developed countries be spurred by financial liberalization? The response is unclear, as some agree and had some not. Next is research objective. The general purpose of this study is to examine the influence of financial liberalization on Malaysia's economic development. First is to analyze the impact on economic growth of various forms of financial system development. Second is examine the efficiency of the financial system with regard to the ties between economic development and financial liberalization. The scope and limitation of this study. The goal of this study is to create significant relationship between inflation, government consumption, and population growth with the correlation of economic. For this limitation study, there is an insufficient data knowledge that was extracted to the analysis. This secondary data was used in this research. GDP per capita was only available until 2015 for the Department of Statistics. This report provides annual statistics only on the per capita annual growth per GDP dependent variable and on each independent variable included. Only from 1971 to 2015 were the numbers of findings able to be received. For the literature review, first is relationship between liberalization of finance and economic growth. First of all, the research on the causal link between financial liberalization, King and Levine, 1993, and the Girogioro, 1993, concentrated on economic development. It was demonstrated by Quan Yu and Zhang, 1998, that the financial deepening had a positive impact on the growth for some Asian trials via exogeneity tests high-performing nations. Second is the economic performance impact of liberalization financial has been called one of the growth ingredients in developing countries. Third is equity liberalization's effect on economic performance. Liberalization of the stock market affords domestic investors the freedom to exchange in foreign equity and approve foreign investors without restrictions to hold. As shown, this is the table of the theoretical framework, which indicates that three exogenous variables will have an effect on the endogenous variable. The three independent variables are inflation, government spending, and population growth, which will influence the Malaysian economic growth based on gross domestic product per capita. Finding and analysis based on table 4.1, descriptive statistic, which the mean for the GDP, government, inflation, and populations are 9.83 E plus 10, 13.89010, 4.2652 2.260 and 2.289467 respectively. This shows that the average change in government is higher than the average rates, GDP, inflation, and population. Besides that, GDP, government inflation, and population shows large differences between the value of minimum and maximum. Augmented decay Fuller was used by taking the intercept with trend and intercept without trend into account to measure the stationary of data series at level and first difference type. In table 4.2, the findings are shown. The level type of ADF test is statistically negligible from the finding provided in table 4.2 when the null hypothesis of non-stationary or unit root is not rejected at the significant level of 10%, 5%, or 1%. Therefore, in level form, the sequence has a unit root. For the normality test, the p-value for the B statistic is 0.328076. It indicates that H null cannot be rejected since the amount is higher than the significant amount, which is 0.005. Thus, it is normally distributed. For the correlation analysis, the highest pairwise association between the independent population growth indicator and government expenditure, which is 0.02429, as seen in the correlation analysis. GDP and population growth is negative 0.885532. In order to get R2 to conduct VIF, this study would then perform a regression analysis of the clear pairwise relationship between these independent variables. As shown, there is two tables, which is variance inflation test first model and second model. For the first model, that there is an extreme multicollinearity because more than 10 are the base VIF. Hence, it would omit the variables that have the largest VIF. Since government has the largest VIF, government variables have been omitted. Next, the second VIF test was carried out again, and the result is that there is no government and the severe multicollinearity issue no longer occurs since the exclusion of government. Bruch-Godfrey serial correlation LM test. The table shows that the p-value is the likelihood value to be used here. We can reject the null hypothesis, and this sample therefore suggests that the error term is not serial independent. The error term is either not serially independent or the model has autocorrelations, in other words. Heteroscedasticity test result. In short, we can conclude that our model is stable and valid as the stationary in first different form has been achieved by all variables via the unit root test. Implication of the study. According to Necker et al. 2008, the coefficient related to government consumption is predicted to be negative. The result is consistent with the hypothesis that Malaysia's government consumption will decrease by 0.71% on average, with Malaysia's economic growth by raising 1%. Second is, inflation has a clear negative association with economic development. For the third one is the outcome of population growth suggesting a negative link to economic growth in Malaysia. For the conclusion, as all variables via the unit root test have been accomplished by the stationary in the first different form, the overall results are considered consistent with previous theories through conduct all of the experiments. For the recommendation, first is provide a stronger comparison between these countries. Next is that potential researchers participate in liberalization studies on various sizes of Malaysia firms. Generate a better and more effective liberalization policy to reduce borrowing costs. And lastly, we suggest using advanced techniques such as unit root test. And that's it from me. Thank you.